Good evening, everybody. I know it's the tail end of the kind of the starting window. Doing my best, but today was a little bit of a trickier one to just make the commute and the and dinner and all of that sort out. But we are here and we are ready for some more Book of Hours, which does not seem to be tagged on my stream. Nope, there it is. All right, let's get set up. Sorry, need 1 second here to clear out a menu or two. There we are. Oops, sorry about that. Books are the memory which does not die, inscribed in 5 languages over the gate of Hush House. Go quietly. Book of Hours is a forgiving sort of game. If you're worried you might be stuck, there's usually another way. And I don't have audio. There we go. So I'm going to wait till we get into the game before I talk about the plan, but there's quite a bit that we can get done. Whether or not we pull that off is another question. So we've got, first of all, we are now into summer, the Grail at her greatest. So this means new visitors. We also have, or assistants, depending on how you want to put it. I do know it sometimes refers to them as people sort of passing by and visitors, but someone was very bothered by the fact that I called them something else. So, anyways, we've got the Fallen Bells. So this isn't the hardest for me to solve, but it's oh, lost my audio again. Sorry. Oh, come on. There we go. But yeah, so we were able to get Denzel up to 11, up to 10 Forge. It did take some effort on our part, but I have a feeling that if I really force myself, I should be able to get him to where he needs to be, assuming I want to go down that path. As far as other rooms that we can go after, I believe yes, as soon as we make Solomon's Preparation, we should be able to open up the Blackened Yard as well, which will give us 2 options. We can move up, we can move deeper into the Cougar bit. Now, if I want to try to take advantage of the Barber, we do have the Infested Wine Cellar. And I think that's it. I don't know if I have that much that I can bring for the Squawkphologia, but you know what? Let's actually just, before we go too far for today, let's actually just take the time and figure out what is and isn't possible with the Barber. The Barber is definitely one I want to keep an eye on. I guess all of the people who can be hired are sort of worth it in the right circumstances, but I definitely, when it comes to the Barber, right, both Moth and Rose are not the easiest for me to come by. So actually, you know what, I think we did work out the Moth already. So if we do Barber, so it starts with 2, so then we would give the Tryst. That would be good for 2. I'm going to say that we can make the name day riddle, so then we go up to 7. And then we have the shears. So that's good for 1. So that brings us up to 8. And then the question is, how do I get the remaining 2 Moth? And I believe the problem I run into is the only real Moth that I have is the Skin-Shuck Mead. I do have the almonds, but the almonds are just 1 Moth on their own. And I think if I seek out any other beverages, well, I mean, there's a misshapen fruit, but same problem, right? It's sort of one and done. Now this is interesting. You could actually, I could feed them the moly. I guess the catch here is that that seems like a pretty big concession. Holiest Hemolyph doesn't work in terms of giving them something. The Lethe, I mean, I wasn't expecting to use the Lethe, but it's not at least it's not as it's not quite as big of a sacrifice as the skin shuck mead. So okay, we have the infested wine cellar. And then I suppose off of that, I might want to try some of the rows. So if we were to try the same with the barber, rows 1, so then we would use the fet for 2. Memory, we would only really be able to bring the 1 in. Or what am I saying? No, we'd have 2 for the... Okay, so if we bring in a barber with 1 rose, the fet brings them up to 3, the memory brings them up to 5, the tool brings them up to 6, and we need to bring them up to 9. Now, I imagine this is... No, hang on. At that point, we would use the... not the Strathcoyne whiskey, but the Roscragen whiskey. Okay. So that gets us to 8. So then, the question is, what food do I want to give them? I'm a little reluctant to give up the jam here. If I have to, I mean, so something like the blackberry jam, for instance. Especially if it's the difference between being able to get somewhere or not. I should also take a look at the Evening's Isles coffee. I imagine Evening Isles coffee isn't going to give us any more than... I don't think I have it poured. Well, that's another thing I should probably work on is sort of deploying some more beverages. Okay, now, as far as the day is concerned, I'm not really going to follow through on any of this right away. I think I'm probably going to need to... Actually, I think we can serve both. Okay, so with the Hennebeck text, yeah, we're getting stone stories. Maybe I'll wait. If nothing else, I can wait the 45 seconds. It won't make a huge difference in terms of what elements of the soul I use. But it'll at least give me a couple of options. Okay, now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. Nin's Cage's The Avignon text. So another one that'll give me quenchings and quellings. So I believe we have more than one quenchings and quellings text, which means I need to think about how I'm going to deploy the winter and heart when the time comes. That's down the road, though. I don't think we're at a point where I could pull off a 16 heart. I mean, maybe, but I probably shouldn't be focusing on, particularly because I I don't need that higher level. Okay, 16, 16. The real hope, of course, is that we bring up horns and ivories. I was originally thinking I needed to somehow try to bring it to 10, but I actually just need to bring it to 5 as long as I have the right ink. And Dr. Ibn al-Adim has arrived. So he doesn't teach us anything that we don't already know. But more importantly, I just want his card. So let me just take a minute here if I'm going to be inviting him. Okay. Dr. Ibn al-Adim, the Alapine, historian, doctor, and above all, traveler. The good doctor has been associated with all but one of the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. He was even secretary nunciant of Hush House for a little while, but he has never been on good terms with the Suppression Bureau. Hello, Takri. Lovely to see you so early in the stream as well. First of all, how are you doing? Second of all, is there something you're looking forward to in House of Light? Because, I actually remember that you had started a playthrough of Book of Hours, and I don't think I ever really followed up with you in terms of how your playthrough was going and how you were feeling about the game. So feel free to share those if you would like as well. Ellen Ripley, always lovely to see you as well. I hope you are doing well. I think I might have said this on Discord, but the book you recommended finally came in at the library. I didn't realize that it was actually quite a popular business book, so it's one that has like a huge lineup for it. But now I get to work my way through it. I didn't mean it that way, Kree. I'm always happy to see you, though. You got sidetracked with commissions you haven't played in a while. Well, September will give you a wonderful excuse, because I believe you own the Perpetual edition of this. So I should maybe mention as well, clearly we are playing the early beta, so I don't want anybody walking away with impressions of how what the finished product will be like. Obviously, I will only have nice things to say about it, and I think most of the confusion would probably be something that is relevant to me rather than a statement about the game itself. But I don't know. I think it's good to take the time to sort of say, hey, let's make sure that everything's everyone sort of knows what's going on. Yeah, no worries. I also send you a lot of messages, so I don't. I basically send everyone lots of messages, but I don't think people should. I don't take attendance, and I don't think people owe me replies unless it's an Outworlds Discord, because obviously I keep dropping truth bombs in there, but. All right, so marinated beef, tangy with the harbingers of a roastful destiny. So, let's collect. Now, I'd like to. I think I'd kind of like to put together a spreadsheet for this. If nothing else, just for my. Just for my own record keeping. I do have some notes that I've written here, but they're getting a little jumbled, so I think it would be better if I can put them in a more ordered form. So I'll speak this aloud. So food, ingredients. To Okay, so potatoes. I think I'm just going to write the aspects out. So edge, forge, heart, winter, grail, knock, scale, sky, moon, edge. Nope, already got edge. Forgot nectar. Okay. Now, unfortunately, I did not record the actual values of some of these. So, for instance, the potatoes, I can tell you have 1 heart and 1 winter because I have access to them. But I can't tell you how high it goes. Let me just turn this into a table. I'm using, normally I use my tablet, but in this case, I've put this in, I put this in Excel, so. All right, so actually let's just start with the things that I have in the kitchen. So we have milk. Oh, I should also get what kind of course it is. It is a cooking ingredient, so it's not something that can be put down on its own. Actually, with that in mind, that eliminates the potatoes as a candidate. Which I suppose means, yeah, okay, so I won't do this record keeping quite yet. Sorry, not entirely true. We have pickled mushrooms. They count as a first course or a side dish. They have 1 edge, 1 heart, 1 moon, 2 nectar. Sorry, still working with spreadsheet programs. Okay. So, anything else that... Okay, almonds can count as a side dish. And that is forge, grail, and moth. I don't think I included a column for moth. Should probably write this alphabetically, actually, but I won't worry about that quite yet. Okay. The canned ham on its own is not sufficient. Pilchards and mackerel are not. Now this is kind of interesting that pilchards are a cooking ingredient. Mackerel is a cooking ingredient and raw, so... I wonder... Alright, so a lot of these just don't count as standalones, which is completely fine, right? Like I'm not expecting any of these to do to do heavy lifting. I'm mostly just curious. All right, plums surely are. Yeah, plums can be a first course. This is just to say. I actually have a very fun coworker, huge Dune fan. But we have kind of a designation we make at work now between the Feely and the Numbery people. And believe it or not, I actually officially count as a Feely person. I just speak Numbery, but he's on the Numbery side of things. And I remember so for those of you not familiar, this is just to say is the name of a poem. It's by William Carlos Williams. It became notable, I guess, because it's a very easy one to put on Twitter. It's quite short, so I don't know if I can do it fully from memory, but I think this is just to say, or actually, I just found it here. So this is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me. They were so delicious, so sweet, and so cold. Now, apparently, this is actually, I think this may actually have its origins in a note that was left for the author. But anyways, so what was kind of funny was I was talking with him, and he was really trying to sort of pull out some meaning on, mortality or something like that. And I said, I don't think that's the reason people were quoting it to each other on Twitter. I think it just is the reason you quote it on Twitter is because it's an unusual thing to see, or read or hear about. But it was kind of funny to encounter his reaction to that. Because I think I sort of get it. Like one of the ways that you can get very frustrated with an English class is if the instructor kind of treats every poem as sort of this cryptogram that you need to solve, and like if you don't, then you get like a bad grade or something like that. I've never found, and I'll confess I've struggled to get into poetry sometimes, but I don't know. I'm beginning to appreciate it a little bit more. Actually, I think Obad by Philip Larkin was another one where I was like, okay, no, there's something here that I can get into. But it's sometimes fun. I like using him as my litmus test for how, I don't know, normal people think about some of the things that I'm interested in. But it's also really fun, when there are some things that he really surprises me with in terms of what he is into, which I also thought was kind of neat. Anyway, let's not, we won't spend too much time on this. I got what I needed, which was, just a rough. It's actually kind of funny that the bowl of pears doesn't count as a course. Oh, the crusty bread, right. Although I don't remember how to make that. Shame on me if I... Oh, dear. Oh, nope, there we go. I believe it is a dough and a bowl. Okay, 1 edge, 1 forge, 2 heart, and 1 nectar. All right, now I think I'm well and truly ready to move on. So I think my first inclination here is to actually also try marinating the pheasant. I can roast a pheasant, but no, we will marinate. Actually, before I do that, I don't think the kitchen bowls would do anything. No. Bronze knife doesn't do anything. It's all worth trying. Pheasants and pilchards. Two tastes that go great. All right, let's get the booze in. Interesting. I can't marinate a pheasant. Okay, I'm actually going to take a second here, if I can. I actually want to see if there's anything I can do but roast the pheasant. Some of these, of course, are absolutely nuts, and you would never want to try this, but I'm kind of at the point where I want to see if there's anything fancy that I can do. Oh, there we go. Cold pheasant with grape salad. Huh. I feel at a disadvantage. By not having any real culinary skill. Jug a pheasant. Okay, I think that's it. So honestly, at this point, how about we just focus on... let's focus on making the dishes that we can. Oh yeah, if I was going to do something with the Deem, I should probably get it done now. What was I trying to do with the... So with the barber, it was going to be 2 from them, 2 from a tryst. So that's 4. The shears would give us 5. And we were looking for 10. So I do need to come up with some other memory, but I think we should be good. So let's hire. So assistance from a traveling barber. In summer, the barber comes by to keep villagers kempt. A shilling will buy his services. Barbers offer moth and a little rose. Alternatively, add a soul card to find rarer guests who might be seeking employment. The itinerant barbers of the South Country will keep you clean and kempt, make sure you don't miss out on any news or gossip, and arrange matters so you aren't too troubled by vermin. Snip, snip. All right, let's keep keep at it. Collaborate, tryst, secret sorrows may join our strengths. Boosts moth and moon. As it happens, I'm also going to be looking to replace the occult scraps, so what comes, neither of us knows yet, but we will. So we'll exalt with the memory. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. Now that I've got that, let's go beachcombing at Crow Cross Sands. Alright, Rokashas, an anonymous confessional account of unsanctioned activities by the nuns of St. Brendan's. The title is a Hennebeck phrase that might be translated as, "The spirit flees the shadowed places." The author writes guiltily of her dealings with the Hill Children and the Carapace relics. She suggests she herself has a connection with one of the Carapace kinds. Most of these dealings are trivial, but she claims to have arranged the death of the Marcher Lord William de Braose, called Black William. De Brause's wife, Ava, evidently seeks the Abbey's help to free her from her hated husband. Subsequently, he is found in the bedchamber of the wife of Llewellyn the Great, Prince of the Welsh, while attempting to negotiate the marriage of his daughter, also Ava, to Llewellyn's son. Llewellyn takes this badly, de Braose is hanged, and the elder Ava inherits his estates and makes a substantial endowment to St. Brendan's. In the author's telling, de Braose was innocent of all but cruelty, and the adulterer found in the bedchamber was a shape-changing undergoer. Alright, so this got us an impulse. That would have worked actually with the barber, but we couldn't have known that at the time. And we have 2 stone stories, which I don't believe we have in my... I don't believe we have this yet in the... Nope. So use this lesson to acquire a new skill. Now this is a little bit of a shame because I would have liked to use this with horns and ivories, but I will... I'll learn with this. Man, I had no idea. These games are so wonderful for teaching me new things about the world. I did not realize that jugged pheasant was a thing. I actually have to look this up. I'm sorry. I know this isn't old world, but jugging. Jugging is a process of stewing whole animals, mainly game or fish, for an extended period in a tightly covered container such as a casserole or an earthenware jug. In France, a similar stew of game animal, historically thickened with the animal's blood, is known as civet. One common traditional dish that involves jugging is jugged hare. A similar stew is known as civet de lièvre. Shouldn't it be lapin? Can't be weirder than stargazing pie. I don't know, if you look into a jug and see a rabbit or a pheasant looking up at you. Jugged hare is described in an influential 18th century cookbook, The Art of Cookery by Hannah Glass. Beginning in the 19th century, Glass has been widely credited with having started the recipe with the words, "First, catch your hare." This attribution is apocryphal. Her actual directions are, take your hare when it is cast and make a pudding. Oh, sorry, cased. To case means to take off the skin, not to catch. Both the Oxford English Dictionary and the Dictionary of National Biography discuss the attribution. However, having a freshly caught or shot hare enables one to obtain its blood. A freshly killed hare is prepared for jugging by removing its entrails, then hanging it in a larder by its hind legs, which causes the blood to accumulate in the chest cavity. One method of preserving the blood after draining it from the hare, since the hare itself is usually hung for a week or more, is to mix it with red wine vinegar in order to prevent it coagulating, and then store it in a freezer. Many other British cookbooks from the before the middle of the 20th century have recipes for jugged hare. Merle and Wright have this to say about jugged hare, for example. The best part of the hare, when roasted, is the loin and the thick part of the hind leg. The other parts are only fit for stewing, hashing, or jugging. It is useful to roast a hare first and to stew or jug the portion which is not eaten the first day. To jug a hare, this mode of cooking a hare is very desirable when there is any doubt as to its age, as an old hare, which would otherwise be uneatable, may be made into an agreeable dish. In 2006, a survey of 2,021 people for the television channel UK TV Food found that only 1.6% of people aged under 25 recognized jugged hare by the name. 7 out of 10 of these people stated that they would refuse to eat jugged hare if it were served at the house of a friend or relative. Civet de lapin, rabbit stew. Okay, so sorry, there's a difference between a hare. Right, lapin is a rabbit, and a hare is, yeah, sorry, my bad. Is an alternative to civet de lièvre, is considered a specialty of the cuisine of Martinique. Jugged kippers, another jug dish, also traditional in the United Kingdom, is jugged kippers, which is kippers with the heads and tails removed, so not like stargazy pie, in a covered jug cooked in boiling water. Recipe books recommend jugging kippers as one way of avoiding the strong smell that kippers have. The Hunter's Reward. Man, I love this stuff. All right, let me just add this to the list. So sorry, this is, I think, a main course? Yes. And it is good for 1 edge, no forge, 2 heart, no winter, 1 grail, no knock, 1 scale, 1 sky, no moon, no nectar, no moth. I'm missing 1. Oh, I didn't have a rose column. All right, cool. All right, let's see what else we can do with pheasants. As far as Stone Stories goes, so that has a nectar. I'm going to need to bring 1 of my health back to get it. So we'll restore the health. I don't need to spend any of my elements of the soul to get the remaining remaining memories. I think I'm gonna catalog some books. Catalog a Solar Period book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Solar Gothic period, roughly between the 1000s and the 1500s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Okay, let's keep going. So I might as well feed the barber. We've got plenty of time, so we will feed the barber the lethe. Dark and syrupy liquor favored in unnamed forest villages. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. Intoxicating. Quick, bring me a beaker of wine so that I may wet my mind and say something clever. Alright, so we'll bring the health in so that I can level up stone stories, and then we can use the health to make a little money. Or sorry, the whist to make a little money. Now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. Observations on the Peacock Door. Nangala of Lagash discusses the Peacock Door, the highest door available to mortals in the Mansus. A rent, an imperfection, an abrasion. Now, what makes this one interesting is I do not believe we have Sickle and Eclipse yet, so that's a new skill for me. I'm going to put this on this shelf. Now, 10 Moon is probably tricky for me to actually be able to do. But it's definitely worth it. Another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. And we can put that into the 2 row. Okay. We will wait with our consider verb. And the Moon's Egg, the 3rd and last volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. So that would be good for Pearl and Tide, which is not yet at level 2. So we definitely have a couple of candidates for reading coming up. Down to the Grussians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. And they are already at level 10, so we can send them to the infested wine cellar whenever we want. I am going to talk with them to get some memories, though. Right, there it is. Cold pheasant with grape salad. That's a side dish. No, first course. Side dish. Bah! So this will get us Grail, Heart, Nectar, Rose, and Sky. One, two, three, four, five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're good. I am going to need to get more pheasants, though. Better now. And I've learned something, or perhaps just remembered it. Okay, let's keep talking with the barber, and then let's get stone stories leveled up. There's always more to learn. Sea strewn, salt snared stuff, so I will try and work with that when I can. The whisk is going to be used to make a bit of money. I'd like to... Nope, I'm not going to be able to make it back in time. I probably don't need to worry too much about money, but I did want to... I did want to have a little bit of change so that I can get a head start on tomorrow. Oh, more than one. So, abandoned luggage long past the help of any lost and found. Suppose I should actually be using the tryst for something. And we can use the gossip to tomorrow if I want, so. Alright, stone stories of the earth, of its forms, of dwellers living and dead. So, let's get the wine cellar dealt with. So, something much bigger layered here. The walls and ceiling are smeared with its slimes. It's gone, but its children remain, wriggling in every shadow. We'll have to clear, lure, or drive them out. And now we will talk with Dr. Ibn Aladim. Peace be with you. I ask entry to the house. The Labite Abykassis of Marrakesh has begun to, let us be tactful here, to behave without decorum. I wish to understand why. Try a book with as much scale as their scale interest, which in this case is just 3. Labites may consume only what is found in the sky. Abykassis seems to have altered his diet. It is important that I understand how. So this is kind of interesting because this also talks about Eason, or this sort of harkens back to what Eason wrote about in terms of only being able to eat things found in the earth. But of course, now going on Team Fish. Okay, Hissing Key is a little high. I feel like we do have a 4 text. Could be mistaken though. All right. Singlefoot songs. Echidna, the Legion, she who suckles serpents. Yes, I am aware that serpents do not generally suckle. I believe now that Abykassis has chosen to drink of what she provides. I do not know if there is anything to be done about that, but thank you, librarian. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Hello, Aminophiz. How are you doing tonight? We've made a couple of the new dishes. So we have jugged pheasants. Sorry, not pheasants, just one. The Hunter's Reward and cold pheasant with grape salad. This was the sort of dish you might expect to find for a late supper after the theater or halfway through a ball. Our Bella Boxer. So far, so good. Well, we'll do everything we can to change that on this stream. I am, of course, kidding. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. Alright, so let me tuck away the gossip. Dream on a memory. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Dreaming on a memory will preserve it past dawn, allowing you to keep it until the following day. And we've got Adim's card. We'll add him to the roster. For what you might call an occult correspondence. And the affair of the second skin. Immortals change more slowly than most of us, but even immortals change sometimes. In the city of Marrakesh, the Labite Abykassis has begun a dramatic and dangerous metamorphosis, one that's alarming friends and enemies alike. So Aladim, the Alapine, came to believe that Abykassis had accepted gifts of sustenance from she who suckles serpents. But will they come when you do call for them? And I always like to see the addresses here. So Aladim's address, Rue Bonaparte, Nice. To make an invitation to Aladim sufficiently enticing, you will need at least 7 rows. Okay, sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Sea glass, smooth as an egg, frosted like a winter window. We did stick one of those inside the nook already, but it's the sort of thing one puts in a nook. And we'll wait for the evening to finish. Now, I might just push right ahead and get that rose that I need for the barber as well. I actually didn't read the wine cellar, so let's do that now. Ricardo Milagro, traveler, rascal, Musgrave's gardener, managed a creditable wine from Brankrug grapes. Cornwall has never really been wine country, but the tradition was unevenly maintained by the curia of the... Sorry, let's try that again. Ricardo Milagro, traveler, rascal, Musgrave's gardener, managed a creditable wine from Brankrug's grapes. Cornwall has never really been wine country, but the tradition was unevenly maintained. Cornwall has never really been wine country, and the tradition was unevenly maintained, but the curia of the Isle kept a good cellar. I'm sorry, this is me. Oh, interesting. So they really knocked back the Domaine Reveline and Schloss Jannings this time around. There's also lost packages. The label is smeared to an unreadable fog. Bucket of seawater, flecks of foam float on the surface. I don't think there's anything new here for us. We still have the collapsed cellar and no real way of working with it. We've got a plain stool, the most reliable object imaginable. How old is it? And... I think that's all I've got to look at right now. Somebody, in response to Ricardo Milagro, pointed out a gardener in Alcatraz, which was a fun little bit of history. I was not aware of that, but... Zangief, hi system. When I consider a piece of furniture, it gives more info, but as soon as I collect it, that text is gone. Is there any way to see the extra information gained? Or do you have to keep reconsidering objects? I believe you need to keep reconsidering objects. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, my usual thing has been to read all the information and then collect. I believe you should at least be able to get the memory without removing the... I think it's only when you remove every single item. So if you wanted, you can get the memory, or you can get the piece of furniture, and it's only if you take both that you lose the window. But yeah, it's the only way you could preserve it. I'm sure you've noticed this already, but if you click on the text, it'll automatically collect these things, and you can paste, or sorry, it'll automatically copy it, and if you want, you can paste it into a separate document. But the most direct answer to your question would be you do need to keep reconsidering the objects, although just the way you phrased it makes me think that you may be running into a situation where the text is going away faster than you're ready to than you would like, and it should only be going away when you're ready to move on. Okay, let's see what I can do with the barber. So I said I was going to take the rose from the barber, add the fet for 2, memory for 2, which brings us up to 5, tool for 1, rust. Right, yes, I've got what I need. So assistance from a traveling barber. In summer, the barber comes to keep the villagers kempt. A shilling will buy his services. I'm going to wait till the weather to make a decision in terms of what books I'm going to read. Okay, sunny day. So we'll start by talking about the gossip right away. I'm going to earn a bit of money. Help with letters. There's no... sorry, I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, they have... since the game was released, there have been a couple of things for note keeping that that they've added. So you can now label the bookshelves, which you couldn't do originally, and the recipes that you've learned. I would need to find something with moon. So as soon as you learn a recipe in here, it'll keep track of it. So it's undiscovered until you learn it at least once. So it's kind of funny because I've never felt as strongly on this, but I know there was somebody in the chat who was also talking about this, about how they sort of feel like they shouldn't have to take notes. It's one I'm like, I actually quite like taking the notes for this game, so I haven't felt too put off by it, but I kind of understand where you're coming from, especially because it takes an element of the soul, which is a scarce resource, to get the details. And because there's so much in the game, you obviously can't keep it all in your head. I think I kind of understand where people are coming from on that. And yeah, to be honest, I don't really have a better recommendation other than to talk about those external tools. But it is one that I sort of, like I said, I kind of get where people are coming from, even if I haven't quite been able to get to that point myself. But again, I'm kind of, I usually just take whatever I've been given, so I'm not the person who's gonna make the game improved. All right, gardening. I don't have cheap viewers. I have quality. All right, let's get some grapes. Pluck the grapes from the vine. I'll also take a minute and catalog this last solar book. So the real question here is, what do I want to read? Like, what's the best use of my time? There is the temptation for observations on the peacock. Oh, well, that's in VAC, actually. I can't read that one. But Carbonex Schism is one that I can read. As is On the Winding Stair. Oof, I've been slacking. All right, let's see what else we've got in the... You're also proud because you just opened up the Westcott room and got a bunch more books. And you actually, Westcott was one of the first things that they teased for Book of Hours. So I do like the line on this one. So, by God, sir, we shall have no cigars in the library and we shall have no house without a smoking room. Ambrose Westcott, 1734, 1797. Out of curiosity, there's a little bit that is revealed about Westcott's fate. Have you, by any chance, considered the object that tells you what happened to him? I'm obviously trying to kind of keep it a little vague in case you haven't. I do want to try making more. I do want to keep making more stuff. So I'm kind of curious with the marinated beef. So I can roast a marinated beef. Presumably the mackerel and the pilchards won't. If I add the ham, that's just one too many. Actually, sorry, I should probably add a. Almonds won't do anything. A lot of these I'm doing... Oops. Oh, actually this is... Okay, so we can roast a beef joint or we can roast marinated beef. A lot of these I'm not expecting something, but I want to... Can I doubly marinate? Not yet. I haven't seen much yet of the Westcott name, but I did notice as you were looking at Ava's desk, there is text there, helpful to another puzzle that you're working on. I'm actually going to take a look at that just to see if I can remember which one. Again, my intention is not to play for other people. Oh, vegetable stew. So that would waste the beef. All right. Presumably sugar won't do anything here. Pumpkin. Now these I don't believe are cooking ingredients. Only other thing I could think of would be the moly. I guess we could also see the crusty bread. Yeah. So the last would be kitchen bowls, which again it strikes me as even less likely to be relevant, but oops. Oh, you know what? I should have tried with potatoes. Got a whole other world of items in here. Really? Fair enough. Oh, and you know what? I also haven't tried the spice scales. What are you talking about? It's right here. I'm willing to guess that I don't have... I don't have the pieces I need to make anything... Like, so I think there's probably things I can do with marinated beef. I just suspect I don't have the... kind of the intermediate stages. But... let's see... Yeah, I'm okay. Okay cooking it. And I mean, I really try not to be annoying with this, but like it is an early beta, right? So I really don't feel like I try to just let people say what they want on the game here, but like I'm not really entirely sure. Like it does rub me the wrong way to see comments like this seems like a step backwards when I am streaming an early beta that I've been given by the developer on the full understanding and with the expectation that I label the early beta as an early beta, right? I really just don't feel we can sit down and say, you know, the cooking system is a step backwards because during the course of production, they do not yet have a full cooking menu entered, right? I really don't want to like hammer down on chat for this sort of stuff, but I also don't really feel like I can just sit by. I feel like I can't just sit by and let that stuff go unchecked, given the understanding that I need to make clear that it's an early version of the game, right? So, sorry, but no, I'm doing fine, Kieran. It's just it's an awkward one, right? Because I don't want to bring down the atmosphere, but I also kind of have my obligations as an early tester. But I'm sorry to hear you're not having a good one. Is it about the interview? You don't have to say if you don't want, but all right, let's focus on our next steps. So if I'm going to oh, excellent. All right, that's good to hear. I guess I was trying to work on the next skills that I earn. I don't have any shopped yet. Seven shards would be nice, but again, I mean, well, okay, I do have some edge. I don't have enough to make something of it. Might be able to do something with the forge. Yeah, so the door and wall might be interesting here. And I think we already have sights and sensations. Maybe not. This is also a good one just because it is the one that gives me bittersweet certainty. You're stuck at work and allergic to shellfish. Your girlfriend accidentally used fish sauce for your dinner, so you are in pain. I am so sorry, Kieran. Sorry, I'm really, really blowing it in terms of getting stuff done quickly. Okay, let's just take it from the top. So desires and dissolution. Okay, so this one is worth it because it gets desires and dissolutions up to the next level. The Iron Book. Now that gives me disciplines of the hammer, but I was also considering which one was it? Seven. Well, yeah, but 7 shards. Realistically, I'm not going to be able to read that anytime soon. So Iron Book gets me... Actually, Iron Book probably gets me both levels of Disciplines of the Hammer. Although that is an 8 edge, so I'm going to need to work towards it. Yeah, no, you weren't Zangief. No. Okay, so here's the thing, right? I'm not trying to put anyone on blast. It's why I don't want to, like, if I can try and laugh it off with something like that, that's like, it's totally fine. It's a very awkward place for me to be as a broadcaster. I don't think anybody was deliberately trying to be unkind or something like that. But just in case anybody feels like put off, with the fact that it's an early beta. Actually, you know what? I could probably read the email that I got here, so this might help for some context. Okay, so yeah, the guidelines that they offer here. So House of Light is about 80% complete. This beta key is for your use only. Please don't share, trade, or sell it. Please don't extract and share content from game files, whether text or JSON or binaries. Book of Hours is designed to be played, not mined. It's fine to talk about the beta, share screenshots, and even stream yourself playing it. But please make clear that it is an unfinished beta. This is bolded. If you stream or share images, please add a watermark to this effect. So, I really do like the way that Weather Factory does this. I do feel like they're a very good studio in terms of doing open development. They've done Kickstarters in the past. They have put out different versions of the game. And I've played versions of Cultist Simulator that were very, very difficult to play, like because of bugs and so on. And I think, especially because we were talking about some of the things that weren't working in terms of the game. So when people talk about the idea of the game being having to rely on external note-keeping tools, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, right? It's not something I personally feel about the game, but I do understand why people would feel that. And I think that's fair comment, because that's sort of something about how the game has been made. And in this case, I have, I can offer maybe a little bit of history. And one of the reasons why I do offer the history for that is that I think it's quite clear that the developers behind this do listen. So the first thing that was added was the crafting menu, and then the ability to label the different bookshelves and things like that. But if there's something that isn't working for people, right? Like, this is what the subreddit's for, this is what the support emails for, and so on and so forth. And that sort of thing, I think, is legitimate. Even if I disagree with it in some cases, I don't feel that it's something. I don't feel like it's the sort of thing where, I would get too bent out of shape about it. But the difficulty here is that because cooking is very specifically part of House of Light, and that is part of that new stuff that I'm showing, and I consider myself very lucky that that Weather Factory has let me share this, because there I'm trying to think of the best way I could put it. There are things that I have played that have very strict NDAs, and in fact they're still in place, which is why I kind of want to make sure that people can't draw their inferences or whatever. Because for like a couple of them, it's just the existence of the project is something that you're not supposed to be disclosing. So from my perspective, I actually think it's really nice that Weather Factory is quite open about it, and that, there might be a marketing side of this too, in terms of being able to give people an early look and get people excited about the game. But the second half to that is when they want to be clear, and I think they have every right to be clear that this thing is unfinished. It puts me in a bit of an awkward spot to have somebody sort of comment on that as in a negative sense, right? To say that, there isn't a full crafting menu implemented. I can't say whether or not it will be in the game, obviously, because there are some things which will produce these crafting menus. I can draw an inference. But like I said, the real challenge here is just the fact that letting that go without comment is, to me, moving past that point where, we're like, this is kind of the point where we're not acknowledging what we are playing, right? Which is an early beta of the game, which is incomplete. And that's the only thing about it, right? Like, I'm not mad at anyone. I just feel that I need to be as clear as possible in terms of what we're playing and the circumstances under which we're playing it. But I also don't want people to feel like I don't want people to feel like they need to wear a hair shirt or anything like that, particularly if, if yeah, it's just, again, it's an early beta, right? Like, it doesn't matter. This is why I'm trying to take the time to explain this, right? Like, it's a form of penitence, Zangief. Like, I don't think people need to flog themselves over what was going on, but like, the difficulty here is that whatever the intentions of the comment are, I can't have somebody say, something's a step back when it's obviously one of these things that is isn't implemented yet, and not comment on that. And I feel very bad that I'm spending this amount of time talking about it like I am, but I guess all I can say at this point is I hope people appreciate why I'm taking the time to talk about it, right? It's because I think ultimately Weather Factory have done a good thing, and it's something that lets us get excited and enjoy this ahead of time. But with that come certain expectations, specifically about me, in terms of how I'm going to make sure that we are unambiguous in terms of the state of the finished version, or the state of the game that I'm playing. So again, if somebody says, it feels like a step back not to have a fully implemented cooking menu in 1.0, it's like somebody saying, it's not good that you have to use a third-party item to keep track of things. But obviously, saying that things are incomplete in a beta is not really consistent with me being clear in terms of the state of the game that I'm playing. But I'm happy to move on from this if everybody else is. And we've got our delivery. All right, something delightful has arrived. This'll improve the mood. Unwrap, unbox, unleash. All right, it is summer. I am sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. All right, marinated roast beef. But since we have learnt from... let's try that again. But since we have learnt from all vaporing France to eat their ragout... I still don't know how to pronounce this. To eat their ragouts as well as to dance, we're fed up with nothing but vain complacence. Oh, the roast beef of Old England, and the old English roast beef. Henry Fielding, The Grub Street Opera. So I feel like I could have read that better, but I don't have poetry in me. Okay. That's gotta be a main course. And this gives us an edge, a forge, 2 heart, a grail, 2 scale. Sky, moon, nectar, moth rose. Nope, none of those. Did I just save this as book 2? Oh, okay, fair enough. Oh, cool, and we get dripping. That's a neat little touch, actually. I'm out of space. Keep the marinated roast beef in the guest bedroom. Why not? All right, my assistant and I have an unspoken understanding. Next up, let's give them the lunar globe because I forgot to serve the Roscragan whiskey. Pour out. Poured out. It actually occurs to me, I think I have a glass of that in the wine cellar. Unwrap, unbox, unleash. Okay, more pheasant, roast it, or add butter if you intend to jug it, so I forgot that it had mentioned jugging before. Where do I... Okay, I think I could put... Well... Naveen parchment. Pale is the first wisp of mountain cloud. Put this here. More beef. And more almonds. Okay, so I have another health to make stuff with. Let's make plum croutons. And I will just take a second here and see if... Oops. See if maybe we can add something different. Yeah, potential. Can't see how the bowl would do anything, but... Okay. And then for curiosity, so I think if I were to add pilchards... Yeah, pilchards on toast. Ham and cheese toasty. You really want me to hatch this egg? But yeah, no, I think the plum croutons are fine. Does not, so far as I can tell, it does not interfere with them. But the so what do we have here? The one thing I'm not clear on though is because I haven't made this yet. Nope. Okay, so in this case here, because the spices and savors is present, it looks like it wants me to make any of the ingredients that that actually use spices and savors. But again, I am sorry to say this, but this is a comment on spices and savors, which already has a recipe book implemented into it. So I imagine this will change. All right, plum croutons. The bread, plums, knife. I'm assuming it doesn't matter what specific knife type. All right, now one thing that does worry me is I have not yet made a decision about my... Actually, you know, we do have an opportunity here with the lantern, so let me just see what we're working with. All right, so I think my best bet here is to go for a revelation. I'll read Locksmith's Dream. So I'll use the Whist for that. I should really be going through these items as well. Purifications and exaltations. No, I think I actually need to use a tryst here. Oh, no, sorry, I'm already reading the book. Okay, yeah, I will go... I'll have it both ways. Something shipwrecked. What ship lost this? So quenchings and quellings was the first skill that I got. So I just kind of like the idea of having my initial strong skill being the one that goes all the way to the top of the Tree of Wisdoms. Everything else has been put to level 2 because I haven't yet decided where I'm going to put it in the Tree of Wisdoms. But I know that because I've got a language in each of the... I've got a language in each of the level 1 slots, and then eventually I will have a language in one of the level 2 slots. Effectively, that means that every skill that I commit to the Tree of Wisdoms will be at least level 2. Most of them will be higher, but because I haven't decided on my path through the Tree of Wisdoms yet, I don't actually have a... I haven't moved any of them beyond, and this is mostly about just preserving options. I am going to have to actually start making some choices before too long, because the consequence of this approach is that this I can read, this I can read, this one I can read. 3 flowers hath the tree, I believe. My leaves and thorns. Yeah, my leaves and thorns is already at 2, so this is not eligible yet. Menascate Reflections is a bit of a funny one because it does, like, I would get 2 out of the amalgam of the Red Rose, so I could add 1 to Menascate Reflections, and then what I'd probably want to do is find something like Disciplines of the Scar to level up. And Ambrosial, sort of a same story there, right? Spices and Savors goes up by the Forge, and then Nectar. Now, the exception to this is the Horns and Ivories, because Horns and Ivories, if I can get that to level 5, will allow me to make a manuscript, which will allow me to advance one of the stories. But because I've been going on this fairly idiosyncratic path through the Tree of Wisdoms, it's left me short of one of the scale or knock. So if I take a look at the things with scale and knock, right, we've got Desires and Dissolutions. Well, that's Grail and Moon. Disciplines of the Hammer would be fully consumed by this anyway, but that one's a Forge and Edge if I recall correctly. So Door and Wall would be tempting, right? We've got that here, and I don't believe we have it in the... I don't believe we have it in our... Oh, sorry, hang on. Was that Door and Wall? Ah, we do have it then. Okay, so On the Winding Stair is actually a higher priority now. Of course, the catch is I don't have Shapt, so it's a little less likely I'm going to be able to read this one. And Ramson gives me Moth and Sky, so that doesn't really help either. But yeah, that would be one that would potentially bring me up to where I want to be with Horns and Ivories. Again, Amalgam of the Red Rose doesn't have the elements that I need. Spices and Savors is Forge and Nectar, so again, not relevant to Horns and Ivories. We are going to be trying the Alloy of the White Rose, but that's also going to be about purifications and exaltations. Carbonite Schism, Sacralamea is Moth and Sky. And then the Moon's Egg, in this case Pearl and Tide, it would just give us one, which we would use to level up the Moon and Rose. So I'm just one shy of what I need for Horns and Ivories, but I need specifically something that's an overflow with Scale or Knock to sort of follow through with how I've been doing it so far. Okay, have a drink. The favorite tipple of Sir David Green, 8th Librarian of Hush House. I can offer my assistant something to drink. Nope, it is not in my interest. Better now. Down to the Grussians. Alright, so we've got 8 of the 9 that I needed. So here we were going to give up. So I always feel a little bad whenever I have to do this. Although, did we get... Why did I think there was Rose with honey? So Blackberry Jam is an option here. I've always been very reluctant to use these just because they're so, well, comparatively rare. But in this case here, again, this keeps us moving along in terms of potential places to gain books. We are still going to be waiting to get another Solomon's Preparation, so I can offer my assistants something to eat. This will also increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. Okay, a dish with Grail, Heart, and Nectar. One should never make this with plums that are not ripe enough to eat. One is quite serious. Again, trying to find a place to put... Like, it's one thing to find a place to put things, it's another to keep it properly organized, so... That'll have to do. Alright, The Locksmith's Dream, Stolen Reflections, the 4th volume of Teresa Galmier's expansive work, no longer a discussion of the dreams of artisans, but a valuable survey of other works. The tone is calmer than that of Trespasses, but occasionally fearful, even paranoid. This volume was published in 1926, but almost immediately recalled and pulped by the publisher at the request of the author or possibly the authorities, depending on which story you believe. A few copies survive. Janus is the gatekeeper, the twin god, the god that wounds, the presager of changes, the sun, the moon. So we identify him with the watchman, the twins with the mother, with the forge, with the meniscate, and the madrigad. He cannot be all of these, can he? The Flamines knew the church, knew the dry land, knew Elagabalus. Is he then synthesis, or is he something else? In Gallicaea they called him Aeneas Lammius, but the Obliviots are notorious for their slanders. Janus has, they say, not one face but two, to which I reply, why only one, why only two? Hersault and Coseley, according to Thomas Love Denman, once agreed that Janus was all the gods and none, but later Hersault described him as all the gods and Coseley favored none. Denman was a sinister dilettante, but this rings true of them both. Now, it did just occur to me that I think it was Zangief had mentioned Ava's desk had something that was relevant. Ah, yes, I see here. A magnificent 18th century secretary desk commissioned for Lady Ava de Wolf, last of the Brandkrug de Wolfs. All right, lost packages. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I know what you're working on, Zangief. And it's one of the things I like about it is that it was a nice little way for me to weave not just the history of the house. So actually, it's tedious for me to talk about myself this much, but it's the only way I can really give it. So some people who may have followed this channel during the Stellaris days will know that one thing that I could do with the species, I think I'm on safe ground to say that I did an okay job writing them. People seem to be interested in them. But I've always been better at the big macro stories. So, I kind of tell the story of a species and it would sort of be this generation spanning sort of tale. And so my style usually would be to sort of read something like these descriptions, right? The baronial period. In the 16th century, the de Wolf family became the Barons Brandkrug, governing the Isle as their personal estate until 1759, when their line ended in madness and death. And then the Curia period. In the 18th century, a secretive cabal of scholars established the Curia of the Isle to manage Hush House, making it a haven of knowledge until 1896, when a disgraced librarian brought the house to penury. So, obviously I can do other ones here, but to me, this is sort of a very natural way for me to sort of think of characters and such. And if my identification of what Zangief has been working on is correct, and I can speak generally enough that this will be relevant to the game anyway, one thing I really like about what they've done with this is that you can learn about these individuals. Part of that comes through the books, part of that comes through some of the other things that you explore in the house, and some of these will be relevant to certain puzzles. And so it's a way for me to be equally interested in some of the librarians who came before, as well as the big broad strokes of history. And I kind of really liked the way that it sort of wound up weaving through the game. I mean, again, this is to a certain extent basic storytelling, right? You have individual characters that you're invested in. And by the way, Zangief, I'm speaking generally just to preserve a little bit of the fun and the mystery for you. So if you want to speak specifics, I can, but I'm always a little conscious when somebody's relatively new to the game. Obviously you have some experience. But I sort of figure, I don't need to speak about specifics to talk about this thing that I really like about the game. But with that in mind, right, you get this in a few different other ways too. Regardless of the thing that I'm specifically thinking of, sometimes you just like reading a book by Thirza Blake, and Thirza Blake just has this incredibly outsized personality, despite the fact, you only ever really hear about this individual. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. There are definitely a couple of people I've been surprised to run into in this game, so it could be that maybe you get to see Thirza, but so far I know Thirza Blake through reputation. Yeah, and I mean, again, it's certainly one of these things. I've found very. My feeling on it is that I never want the whole no spoilers thing to like get in the way of a good conversation about something we all like. But I've never really found a situation where something could potentially be spoiled and there isn't another way of talking about this thing. And so I always just kind of try and take the view that it's like, okay, hopefully we're all adults here. Hopefully we sort of understand there is a difference between, maliciously trying to ruin the experience of someone else and, and enjoying something. But on the other hand, too, right? I try to be as sensitive as I can in terms of where people are coming from. So, I'm not gonna, I won't talk about what you find here, or oh man, your mind's gonna be blown in this room. I figure it's probably safe for me to say there's gonna be a couple of surprises down here for you. Saying, "Oh man, you're at this room. Just wait till you get to that other one." No, you can enjoy that on your own time. That's I figure that's the better way to preserve the experience. Okay, I think we are ready. I'm going to need to get some more tea in a little bit, but I think we are ready to take a stab at the alloy of the white rose. So, Inks of Revelation's probably my best one. Well, that or Auroral Contemplations. We can put that in, I guess. And then we add the mirror scope. So what we're really hoping for here, I guess there's a couple things that could potentially happen. We could wind up with 2 elements of the soul, which would make me sad because then I'd have to give up the 2 whist for that. My hope, of course, is that we get weather or memory. But I think this one's worth trying. I'm going to put this right up to the front because even if it's tough, I really do want to do it. And the fact that we have horns and ivory, so the thing that makes it difficult is the fact that I don't have Shapt yet. The thing that makes it easier is the fact that coincidentally one of the skills I've allowed to go higher is one of the ones that's relevant. So hello, Yip. Well, I'm happy to see you anyway. You can feel free to ask questions, by the way. Yes, well, I've been trying. This is how I've been doing. I think Kieran said it best. We've been doing occult cooking with System Chalk lately, just because I do want to see what the new recipes are, but I don't know how the recipes get sort of weaved into the game. So I have been sort of brute forcing all of the different combinations. But again, it's there's a lot to do, so I'm almost certain to miss a few of them. But how are you doing, my friend? I know you're undergoing some turmoil and excitement in your life, so I hope it's all turning out well. You have an offer from Oriflammes, and I realize you need to find some better ways to earn Spintria. And to be honest with you, this is actually the ones I've never been great at. The events that allow me to get Spintria are ones that, in a narrow way, are under my control. But by making them under control, if I make them under my control, that actually involves a Spintria cost anyway. So it's, yeah. If you want, I can give you a little bit of an outline in terms of what I understand for Spintria. If it's something you'd like to figure out, that's fine too. But Spintria is definitely a scarce resource compared to some of the others. Okay, sand. An hourglass, of course, is sand contained by sand. I'm running out of places to put this. I also don't need this much, but... I'm going to hold off on using the Tryst for the next little bit. So if you're curious about what we've been cooking, by the way, for anybody, by the way, we've got jugged pheasant, the hunter's reward, cold pheasant with grape salad. This was the sort of dish you might expect to find for a late supper after the theater or halfway through a ball. Arbella Boxer. We've got marinated roast beef, but since we have learnt from all vaporing France to eat their ragouts as so well as to dance, we're fed up with nothing but vain complacence. Oh, the roast beef of Old England, and Old English roast beef. Henry Fielding, the Grub Street Opera. I should actually look up how that song works, so I can not sing it to all of you. We just got gossip. He gave it back to us. And let's see what's coming up with the vision. Well, hang on. It's outside chance that this is going to work at this point, but okay, there's still a chance. So, art, it's educational, possible inspiration from a relevant painting or other wall art. Awen, divine inspiration, or just the right breath of air at the right moment. And extra effort, soul. I don't believe I have a 2-lantern art, but I'm willing to look. Oh, there you go, the Mansis. What do you think this game would look like if it expanded to other cultures, lore, and mythologies? It seems Western-rooted so far. I definitely think it extends beyond Western. So, for instance, if I take a look at the Ascendant, written in Hyksos, a Sly language. So the Hyksos would have ruled Egypt for a while, which... I don't know, I feel like Egypt might be Western adjacent, but I feel... Well, I mean, maybe you'd know better than me, because I feel like your educational background might have you run up against this a little bit more often. It is definitely... There's definitely some other locations that are hinted at. So, I mean, this does take place in Cornwall, so it's definitely going to be very heavily... it's going to be very heavily influenced by that. But in terms of the overall lore, the branches of the Watchman's Tree would include like the Grove of Green Immortals, which is definitely based in the Far East. Vac is, I think Vac is suggested to be this hypothesized, more fundamental language. I'm trying to remember exactly the term, but I know I don't know how widely believed this is, or if this is just a hypothesis someone had at some time, but this idea that there are these common words across languages that don't really seem to have any other sort of cultural connections that would explain it. And so there's this idea of a language that I think would be common to, or that had like as a common origin between Sanskrit, Latin, and there was one other one. I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah, Sanskrit, the holy tongue of the subcontinent, the door to 4,000 years of poetry, ceremony, and mystery now opens before you, if you can struggle through the lotus convolutions of its vocabulary. And then if you look at something like 108, there's the Great Hooded Princes, and these would be sort of considered to be, I think their general region would be more around India. So, yeah, it's a tricky one for me to say. Like, I think it would be wrong for me to say that there isn't a heavy Western influence on it, just because so much of this is... you know, like Brandkrug Village and all the characters that you meet are definitely based in England, and specifically the eras would relate to would relate to sort of British history. So you've got well, I mean, with certain nods. So, for instance, there's a discussion of a restoration in the 1930s. So, clearly that did not happen in history. And this idea of the new king, there's that, of course, relies on you having a bit of an understanding of the history of the United Kingdom. But when you start getting to the lore, I actually do feel that it tends to take a very broad view of history. So, for instance, in the second history, the Shadowless Empire is almost certainly Persian or some equivalent to that, and that is the one that's ascendant. There's a history where Alexander turns around at Issus. Alexandria is a really important city in the setting too, incidentally. So I feel that once you start getting to some of the occult material, it's a little less. I think it's a little less focused on specific, some of the specifics that you may be noticing. But again, as you say, I'm relying a bit. Actually, what may interest you, yep, I don't tend to consult this very much, but I know there's a couple people in the chat who like it, but because you're a bit better versed in world literature than I am, and for the benefit of anybody who perhaps wants to check this out themselves, there are 3 wikis in the for the Weather Factory games. So there's one specific wiki for Cultist Simulator. There's a specific wiki for Book of Hours, which is this one. But the one that I just linked there is actually the Secret Histories wiki. So again, I'm quite stubborn in terms of wanting to sort of wrestle with things and try to figure them out on my own. And even if that means that I missed something really obvious for a long time, being able to finally get caught up is that is still enjoyable for me. The other thing too, right, is that I think this might have a little something to do with my work. Like I do a lot of reading and writing in my work. And very frequently, I will encounter some things where, it's an open question, or, someone may be asserting something, but there may be another reading on that you might you might want. In the end, part of the job is judgment, right? It's knowledge work. It's, if you could develop an algorithm to do it, my job wouldn't exist. So with that in mind, that is generally my approach to most things, which is, I think something like the Secret Histories wiki is very cool. But I almost always want to check a source whenever I'm running into it. And yeah, with that in mind, I, where I can, I try to build up my own framework. I do actually want to spend some quality time with this at some point before, but I haven't really been able to dedicate some time to set aside a proper, I'm going to work this all out for myself and see how far I can go. And I always wanted to do that before I tried I tried tackling the Secret Histories wiki. Let me just read what Zangief said, and then there was one specific thing I wanted to go to, though, on this page. But yeah, anyways, for those of you that like the lore of this game or are interested in the lore in this game, this is a wiki that is maintained by the community, which is not necessarily tied to one of the specific games, but rather tied specifically to the setting. So you're good on the Spintria topic. However, you would like a hint regarding the scholar level puzzle. I have a hint that is, I think, saying you should combine a light and a feather, but I haven't found a place to do so. Is it something that I'm just not understanding, or do I need to unlock more of the house first? Okay, this is interesting. So first of all, there's actually it's probably both. So I'm trying to remember if there is a case where the game will expect of you 2 special ingredients, and I actually can't think of one. I'll give you an example. So if I go to the Alchemist Glassware, and I take Quenchings and Quellings. So you can see here that I can get Eigengrau on its own and Regensburg Bomb. So this is probably the one that's giving that you're getting the hint for. So, creates Regensburg Bomb for a scholar level recipe. If I add a suitably aspected liquid, I will brew something more potent. So this one, I feel I chose this one specifically because I feel that it's this is not much of a spoiler to you, right? So in this case here, you add the liquid and you get the higher level item. I don't think I've seen an example where you would have two of these specific ones. So the idea that it's asking to add light and feather, I think I know the recipe that you're looking for, but I think you only actually need one of those things. But it is definitely fair to say that you are sometimes constrained in the crafting that you can do based on your but with that in mind, this is something you'll run into later, so I will just finish the thought that I had. Definitely the game is built to make some things easier to do at certain tables than others. And unlocking more of the house will definitely give you access to some of the stuff that will make you say, oh, I really wish I could have done that, at X, Y, or Z time. So I do have a feather here. And actually, you know what? I won't do this for the feather just because you might want to take the time to figure that out on your own. But there is one thing I will point your attention to, which is thing is not a good example. Of course, oh, this will be a good one, actually. So baskets of clean linen. So we have the heart aspect, right? They're woven and they're restorative, or in the case of the pale Mamet, woven and a tool. And even though something feels like it shouldn't go into a workstation, or it shouldn't be able to make the thing that you want to make, it tells you this is what is allowed and this is what isn't. So unless the game specifically tells you can't put that thing in there, I encourage you to try putting the thing in there. And that was something that I learned in Cultist Simulator, actually, which is sometimes there can be a little bit of a trick in terms of realizing exactly what something is, rather than just relying on your intuition or what feels like it should be right. I do too, Yip. I think Clockwork Cuckoo is responsible for some of them, but I also know that Lottie Bevan, the co-founder of the studio, is responsible for a lot of these too. Okay, sorry, I'm sidetracked, but not for bad reasons. Let's watch what's happening with the opportunities. So we did decide that we don't need to give up the whist. We can just use the mansis. Or the painting of the mansis, rather. Oh, I'm sorry. I did say I was going to talk about something in the wiki as well. Let me just see if I can find the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. So I'm not going to put this on the monitor just in case there's something I don't want to talk about on this, but the Watchman's Tree, also referred to as the Great Storehouses of Knowledge or the Covenant of the Rood, are 9 occult libraries that are scattered around throughout the world. Each library has different specializations to their collection, and a number of them have various hours who serve as their patrons. So there is Hush House, which is, I'm going to skip over that because that's where we are. So playing the game is finding out about Hush House. The Invisible Serapeum. Now, I believe this actually comes up in the tabletop experience the lady afterwards. So this is in Alexandria, and this is actually referred to. So Serena Blackwood actually left Hush House to become the librarian at the Invisible Serapeum. The Yeshiva Tigris, so this is a Jewish academy in Georgia. There's the Tomb of Lies. This one is associated with the Great Hooded Princes, but I don't believe it ever points specifically to where where it is. So there may be the association with the 108 or 54 and India, but I don't think it ever actually comes right out and says that. The Grove of Green Immortals, which again somewhere in Asia, but I don't know if it's sort of it's a monastery on a mountain. I don't know much else. I think the Ostorium is based in South America. Oh, it says here, Enclave in the New World, the Ostorium preserves that which is unwise to preserve. Labyrinth of Lions, and the Monastery of the Fifth Cup. I don't remember this one, actually. And I will just make a note here from the wiki, because obviously I relied on a little bit of that to talk about. So it says, further information regarding a number of the 9 libraries exists, though such knowledge currently requires an enigmatic approach to discover. Information from earlier during the development of Book of Hours about the libraries may not reflect the final design. One instance of this appears to be the nameless library mentioned earlier in development, which appears to have been replaced with another. So this is also worth noting in terms of wikis that, somebody may be onto something. Somebody may have a really good idea that the community agrees with, and then all of a sudden there is something that changes in terms of the the world, that there's a new piece of information, and as a result it's and if somebody doesn't update the wiki, then the old version's going to be going ahead. So read at your own risk, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Also, it's been over an hour since I wanted to get some replacement tea. Let's finish our book, and then I'm going to take oh my goodness, Lord Gloom, thank you very much for resubscribing. Well, now that I've got Lord Gloom's money, I think it's a great time to take a break. Thank you very much, Lord Gloom. For those of you who do not know him, I actually haven't seen you online, but I think this may be a me thing rather than a you thing. But Lord Gloom is a wonderful variety broadcaster, somebody who originally found through Cobalt Core, which is by Brace Yourself Publishing. The developers also did a great game called Sunshine Heavy Industries, both of them really fun. You're bracing yourself for Tarkov hype. But yeah, Lord Gloom is actually the one broadcaster who really I've watched play House of Tarkov, Escape from Tarkov, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get what people see into this. I'm not gonna pick it up myself yet. I feel like that's maybe not one that's gonna quite. I don't know if that's quite something I'm fully sold on yet. Maybe if it gets a deep discount or something like that. But I do quite enjoy watching Gloom play. And I mean, like I said, a proper variety broadcaster, they'll do everything from physical Magic the Gathering to Cobalt Core to, even just one-offs on interesting things. So, and at some point we will get to watch him play presumably Cultist Simulator and Book of Hours. You won't be variety for the next few weeks. All right. So we'll read The Alloy of the White Rose, and then I'm gonna make myself some tea for the last hour. So, or for the precise among you, a tisane. The Alloy of the White Rose, an account by Mistress Whiteflower of the alchemical techniques favored by the House of York, also identified with the Dawn Road. These techniques failed to bring them victory in the War of the Roads, but they are not to be discounted. Hello, Nearly Logical. The author asserts proudly that the Dawn Road ends in the second dawn, and hints darkly that the downfall of the House of York was Grail sabotage. Mistress Whiteflower urges a history of Uzalt where the second dawn may come to pass. She identifies xanthotic essence as Uzalt's predecessor. She explains that with sufficient lantern, bitter black salts can be purified to xanthotic essence, and iotic essence can be exalted to xanthotic essence. So I want to just read this again, not so much for the Uzalt recipe, but for the specifics. So, an account by Mistress Whiteflower of the alchemical techniques favored by the House of York, also identified with the Dawn Road. These techniques failed to bring them victory in the War of the Roads, but are not to be discounted. I am reading. The author asserts proudly that the Dawn Road ends in the second dawn, and hints darkly that the downfall of the House of York was Grail sabotage. Mistress Whiteflower urges a history of Uzalt where the second dawn may come to pass. She identifies xanthotic essence as Uzalt's predecessor. She explains that with sufficient lantern, bitter black salts can be purified to xanthotic essence, and iotic essence can be exalted to xanthotic essence. Okay. It's the Dawn Road, and specifically the House of York, that I'm thinking about. Also, one of the things that I know is true about half of the development team, they really like words and languages. So it's always... The one that's always tricky for me is that there's obviously very well-read people who are making this game, so sometimes there are words that are just words I've never heard before, and then sometimes there are words that, that are invented for the game. So for instance, like xanthic, or xanthic gum. I've always understood xanthic to be sort of like yellowish. And I don't know if xanthotic is already a word, or if this is specifically intended to sort of echo that idea of xanthic. We do actually have xanthotic essence, right? Rich gold of a summer afternoon, if sunlight precedes moonlight, St. Anselm observed. The meniscate must precede the madrigad, and the light that was lost will remain. I, alas, do not have an etymological dictionary with me. I do have a dictionary at work, but I don't have it at home for consult. Actually, you know what? Funny story. I have half an Oxford dictionary, so let me see if I can find... If anybody knows where I can buy a first volume of the shorter Oxford English Dictionary, I would have... They only mailed me the second half, so that was the question I had for them. I mean, they were good about it. They gave me a full refund, but I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I have N through Z. I also have a thesaurus, like I have the big ass thesaurus too. So if anybody wants an alternative word, I can. Sorry, I know I don't do this for every word, but this is really sticking in my head now. Oh, this is interesting. So xantho, so it says here, combining form, origin from Greek, xanthos, yellow. So that obviously, that's not news. Reminds me of the author that wrote, tell me more. Yep. Then there's a bunch of chemistry, xanthochronism, xanthochromic, xanthopore. Xanthochronic anthropology designating or pertaining to people typically having yellow or light-colored hair and pale complexion. I feel like you can't write the author's name and follow the rule. Sorry, I turned out all the lights, so I don't know if I can find. Yeah, so as far as I can tell, this is an invention for Book of Hours. I am pleased, however, that Xanthippe is just above Xantho. I feel like Yip can tell us about Xanthippe. All right, I did promise that I was going to go get some tea, and I don't want to spend too much time away from House of Light, but I do... Oh, and I've lost my audio again. Just a sec. However, I am going to share... a story to compare with Yip's E story. So, out of curiosity, does anyone here know about Timothy Dexter or his book, A Pickle for the Knowing Ones? Because I'm mostly interested in sharing the appendix, but I will, I think all of you should prepare for the light's glory. All right. A Pickle for the Knowing Ones is an 1802 autobiographical book written by American businessman Timothy Dexter. The book uses unorthodox spelling and grammar conventions and contain... Please, give me my sounds. The book uses unorthodox spelling and grammar conventions and contains almost no punctuation. Dexter was a rich businessman and eccentric, known for gaining his wealth through lucky investments like sending coals to Newcastle at a time of a miners' strike. The book includes complaints about things such as politicians and the clergy, while Dexter praises his own glory and even says that he should be Emperor of the United States. The second edition is noted for containing a page of punctuation in the appendix. So there's a full article about Timothy Dexter, but I'm going to leave that aside. Dexter was born in Malden, Massachusetts in 1743 and began working as a tanner at 16. He moved to Newburyport, Massachusetts when he was 21 and married a wealthy widow, Elizabeth Frothingham, obtaining a sizable fortune with the marriage. At the end of the Revolutionary War, Dexter purchased a large sum of continental currency that was worthless at the time. Several years later, it had regained its value from prior to the war, making Dexter extremely wealthy. With it, he purchased ships and began a trading company. Dexter began selling bed warmers to the West Indies, a move that proved to be a good idea when the captain sold them as ladles in molasses production. In another instance, Dexter bought a large amount of coal and sent it to Newcastle, an idea given to him by opponents as a trick, but it happened that Dexter sent the coal during a miners' strike in the town. Dexter's luck in the trading business soon made him one of the richest men in Massachusetts, causing much contempt from other businessmen in the area. Dexter had published letters in a number of newspapers that, in the words of Dexter, amused the public with comical ebullitions of Lord Dexter's genius. Dexter wrote A Pickle for the Knowing Ones and distributed it to the public for free. Content and themes. The first edition of A Pickle for the Knowing Ones is 8,847 words long, totaling 32 pages. The book contains no punctuation, many misspellings and grammar mistakes, and randomly capitalized letters. An example of this can be found in the start of the fourth edition. To mankind at large, the time has come at last that the great day of recognizing that is the way I tell you those three kings is raised you mean should know raised on the first royal arch of in the world. The text is structured like a series of letters. Each section is signed Timothy Dexter or T Dexter or T D''R, variably at the bottom, with some containing headings from the Museum of Timothy Dexter, Esquire. Throughout, Dexter complains about things like politicians and the clergy, while also praising his own glory and power. He even suggests that what the United States needed was an emperor, and that they should call for me to take the helm. After receiving complaints about the lack of punctuation, Dexter published a second edition in 1805, this time containing pages full of punctuation in the appendix. He tells the readers to pepper and salt it as they please. 6 more editions were published after Dexter died in 1806, containing letters and speeches by Dexter added by the editors. For to Mr. Printer, the knowing ones complain of my book, and the first edition had no stops. I put in enough here that they may pepper and salt it as they please. Comma, 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 colon, 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 period, exclamation marks. Yeah. The Timothy Dexter entry itself is actually quite a fun little read as well. So for those of you looking for inspiration, if you want to add your own books to Book of Hours. But as amusing as a diversion as that was, I am going to collect my goodies. I am going to put the kettle on, and I am going to refill my tea for the last 45 minutes or so. Thank you all for your forbearance. I will see you after we pay the rent. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. And yeah, Aminefez, I suppose the one thing this would be a fun experiment for me to do. So somebody had requested Edgar Allan Poe. In fact, if Takri is still around, this is the person you can thank for the gold bug. But one thing I wanted to do out of it, which only partially worked because like it's hard to do in real time, but for the gold bug, that is a story that involves the credit. That's a story that involves a code, and in fact, it's one that I think even in the story they solve through I guess this is frequency analysis. Anyways, it's the looking for common letters at a certain level, and there have been figures in history. So I think William Friedman is one of the people who did that. But basically, scholars have already worked out what the most common letters are. But I thought, it's like, okay, well, let's say I was sitting down reading the gold bug for the first time at the time that it was written. Maybe not at the time it was written, because the method that I used was, is obviously a modern one. But it says, like, let's say I couldn't just Google it in terms of finding the letters. What would be a way that I could maybe try and approximate this? And I sort of thought, well, let's just take the text of the gold bug itself and run it through Python and just see how frequently certain letters show up. Now, if you apply that directly as a dictionary, you wind up with a mess. But if you take the time to, work one letter at a time, then basically it kind of becomes like a bit of a crossword puzzle, and you can usually sort of figure out the incorrectly substituted ones pretty easily. If you try to do it in one go, then it's a little bit harder. But what might be an interesting comparison would be if you can find, and you'd probably want to find documents that were written around the time of A Pickle for the Knowing Ones, and find out roughly the punctuation, in terms of, and there's a few measures you could use per page, per word. You probably would want to work out like a ratio of words to punctuation. But we could probably come up with a ballpark. Like, if nothing else, you could probably do a statistical test to see whether or not there's an unusually low or high number of punctuation marks, because it could actually turn out that Dexter's, yeah, that might be a fun little project to try, actually. But yeah, it could actually turn out that Dexter very specifically thought about what punctuation marks he would have put in place, and in fact did not give a random list, but in fact provided enough to go on. Because if you go to the article, you will notice there are far more commas than there are stops and exclamation marks. And that seems like that would be right. Like, as a prior to any count, I would imagine that there should be more commas in a document than stops. So, anyways, a pickle for knowing one such as myself. Let's learn purifications and exaltations. I actually have a small, so there's a couple of ones for me. Yep. I have like my hierarchy in terms of like commas and dashes. I try to use them in specific instances to mean different things, but I'm still scared of semicolons. And it sucks because I have to peer review more stuff at work now, and my coworkers use semicolons, and I'm like, but I'm not in a position to judge a semicolon. This isn't quite how I would use one, but then I usually just rewrite my sentences to avoid using the semicolon. And I even have like a Fowler's modern English usage beside. Like, I have instructions explaining what semicolons are and how they are to be used. Like, it's not even that I don't have access to to the lessons, for lack of a better way of putting it. But I don't know. Still never feel confident with semicolons. Here I'm really just generating whatever memories I can out of the visitor while I can. All right, another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. I'll use the sunny day in this case, because this is the one thing that goes away, whereas the both the gossip and the revelation can be kept overnight. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms, if you haven't already committed it. And I should use the whisk to... Well, we'll make money, but that's about it. Decision time for me, whether or not I want to... I may not have enough time, so I'm actually going to see if we can... I'm going to see if I can maybe open up one of these packages before the end of the day. I don't think so. Yep. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. The tryst goes to waste. Purifications and exaltations. No one ever truly wants to be changed. Azoth and Refulgan are justly feared, but no one who has been changed would choose to go back. George Collar's underappreciated hero of Book of Hours. Oh, and actually nearly logical, I was just thinking, not that I intend to invite myself to Sweeps' stream, but I feel like A Pickle for the Knowing Ones should be the next co-cast that we do in terms of reading. I've learned something, or perhaps just remembered it. Okay, so decision time. First of all, let's make sure that... that would be amazing. You get to hear us... Well, me at least, but probably both of us struggle with interpreting Lord Dexter's wisdom. Birds crowd every corner of this place, glaring at me with malevolent yellow eyes. Guano cakes the walls and feathers drift the floor. Something has drawn them here. It'll need to be dealt with. Once it has, the place will need an awful lot of cleaning. It is time for your tea and pet the cat before she mauls me. Have a splendid night, Jock and everyone. Have a wonderful night yourself, Yep. And let me point out that we in fact found our own cat. Stray cat. Feed some animals and earn their loyalty. Feed this one and earn its patience. This one is actually modeled after one of the cats that the developers have. The developers have two cats, Sulu-chan and Chi. The Sulu and Chi are the names. I don't know if Chi is an abbreviation. I think it would be Kion. So maybe it's Sulu and Ki? Anyways. Let's see. What of these memories do I want to keep? So the gossip gets me a little grail, but I'm probably going to need more than a little grail. Yes. I should play some like The Doors or something like that, and just have the stray cat replay the opening to Apocalypse Now. I thought I had something with a higher level of Grail. That's going to be a little disappointing if I don't. Nope, that's it. So we can bring... I know I can get 2 with satisfaction. And I can bring 2 from a skill. But I don't have an element of the soul to... Oh no, hang on, I do. Yes, we can do this. But the gossip's not the way. Okay, so for the rest of this, no edge, no knock. It really doesn't matter which of these I bring along. The foresight is technically the one that's more useful for the forge stuff, though, so... If I'd been thinking, I could have taken the tryst to feed one of the animals. Why do I keep doing this to myself? Okay, so for tomorrow, there's a few things I want to do. So it's summer, so I should actually be able to get some more vegetables. I do want to do some cooking, but getting vegetables might be a higher priority. Feeding the animals would not be a terrible idea, but I don't want to just focus on that. And we don't know where we want to go. So I'm not gonna hire someone. I'm just gonna generate the I'm just gonna generate the satisfaction on its own. So I'll read Factory's Herbery. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. And yes, today we are going to read on Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, unless, of course, we get some weather that makes me want to change my mind. Cloudy day. Maybe we want to try something with the moon text. So Ava's desk would have been good for that, but let's see here. We'll say crossing the noon just as an example. Okay, so our best moon, I think, is 3. Okay, so I mean, it's not impossible. So we can get up to 7 with what we already have here. We're looking for 8. And we have weather to help us out. So the next obvious question will be, out of all of the different level 8 moon texts, Yeah, 10's too much to ask. So the question I need to ask here is, out of the books I potentially can read, what gives me something that I want? So Deaths of the Moon gives me Snow Stories. And Snow Stories is moon and winter on its own. So that's really not really something I need here. We've got Crossing to Noon, which gives me Sea Stories. So Sea Stories, I think we still have at a lower level. Please tell me I didn't already put it away. The preliminal meter and the... Oh, here it is. So again, similar story. We'd use one and then level up one of these other ones. So I'm not totally sold on either of these quite yet. I think I'm just going to let these stay on their own. Trying to think if there's something I want to do with the clouds or not. I don't think it hurts, though, to read the Moon's Egg. So that gets me Pearl and Tide. Pearl and Tide needs to get moved up. So yeah, we'll read that. And then we were going to work on Matthias and Amethyst Imago, so we'll keep the core set aside there. Okay. Let's do some gardening. So the gardens of Hush House hold plants with many virtues for those with the wisdom to recognize them. And I'm actually going to use both health to do some gardening, because I kind of want to make something of that while we have access to the garden. So then the last question would be, do I want to try and do something with the amalgam of the red rose, which would be a nice companion to the white rose, or ambrosial? And I'm not quite sure I'm ready to do this. Well, there's a lot of Grail books to read, so I've got Orchid Transfiguration, Snare of the Tree, Intimations of the Skin, Callicite Supplications, and then this is the 10 section here. So Collected Hush House Lectures is a bit of a strain on the finances, but it does give me Sickle and Eclipse. So I'm taking it. So I don't want to waste elements of the soul like last time, but I'm going to wait until they... Yes, please do. Yeah, I don't know. I do want to open the packages. I do want to feed the animals, and I'm just not 100% clear which of these things I want to do first. Anyway, I do know the one thing I wanted to do today, which is get some more desires and dissolution. So Fekri's Herbery, the early wisdom of Isan Fekri, at that point a traveling healer, much later the secretary salvant of the Curia of the Isle. As a Scaptodon, Isan may consume only that which is found in the earth, so he is best with root lore. Eason identifies a pale seaweed found on the beaches of Cornwall as a useful source of rose and winter aspect. His tone here is a little guilty, perhaps because he's showing an interest in sea produce, which might be thought unwise for a Scaptodon, and perhaps because his proposal to name it Ava's Locks suggests a tiny crush on the Pale Lady of Brankrug. Alright, let's go to Nona's desk for the reading. So here we've got on Matthias and Amethyst Imago, Pursuit. We've got our Satisfaction and Resurgences and Emergences. Oh, and the Spice Scales, my bad. I can master this mystery, enough Grail to match Mystery Grail. Right, these aren't compatible. So I was wondering if I maybe found a bug or something, but I didn't. I mistook this for 2 shillings rather than a half crown and a shilling. Okay, I did not read the description of the room. Gullscry Logia. When Baron Valentine's melancholia and his accusis became too much to bear, he began to take his meals here, with none of those sounds that he found troubling, only the wind, the sea, and the cries of his beloved birds. After the dwarfs were gone, the librarians of the Curia would come here when they needed to think in peace. So we've got Armagnac D's. Armagnac can only come from Gascony, but if you believe Monsieur Corentin, his vineyard began with vine cuttings from years beyond the sea. Got a snug chair, a wicker chair with soft white lap blanket for chilly evenings, another shadowless silk, a variant of the Persian silk tree, golden as the shadowless kings. Asmeal, a silver ink that can only be made and used in dreams, an ink of revelation, quite powerful one. We have the Logia Prospect, take counsel with the seas. A comfortable garden chair, and notably, we've got another room. A picnic in the Gullscry Logia. Somber conversations where once poor Valentine sat alone. Here one might have a picnic, but only in spring or summer. Okay, we've also got the Weeping Chamber, so if we can bring Denzel up to 10 Forge, which we have in the past, we have another room that we can open up. I don't recall if there's any books in here. I don't think so, but there is a workstation that's kind of helpful. But my real focus should be on whether or not I have the elements of the soul to level up the things that I need. So this is going to give me one that will probably require my Tryst. Yeah, because I've already used the Fet. And this means that if I'm trying to move up Desires and Dissolutions, that's a Grail and Moon, so I'm going to have to bring... Yeah, I'm going to have to bring back at least one Tryst. Sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. So the Fost and the Whist I can use for on the packages, though. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. So I'm happy for another U-blank. That, that'll be helpful with Mr. Kill when the time comes. Okay, a sack of vegetables. Now I know these you can actually use an element of the soul on to turn into a specific vegetable. Again, running out of space. Gonna make some changes. So Domaine Reveline we'll put in the wine cellar. Schloss Jannings can go there too. The dandelion wine. My God, we have a lot of that. Okay, so I've kind of cleared off this area, so not enough room. I think that's as close as we're gonna get it. Okay, but that still gives me some space to work with. So from there, move the ham. Still haven't given myself a spot for the vegetables, though, so that's a problem. I was hoping to try and follow some sort of logic in this layout, but I tried and I failed. So again, I'll restore the tryst. Actually, I should be opening one of these things already. So something lost. Crack open the container. Delight in your discovery. Better now. Okay, so we'll restore one of the tryst. It is summer. I am sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. The Moon's Egg, the third and last volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas in the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of the coming death he hears in the sound of the waves, but rejoices that his blood will water the egg of the moon, by which he seems to mean the future. The last chapter was dictated, not written, by Abbot Thomas. When Thomas's old sword brother Trigeave returned to raid the abbey, Thomas had broken his monastic oaths and taken up arms to defend the abbey. The two had both been mortally wounded. Thomas's last words are, "The wheel turns, the moon sleeps." So, confounding parable. I believe it's this shelf. There's the pearl and tide we were expecting. So in 41 seconds, I'll be able to commit that. Interesting. I always thought this used to cycle through different forms of sorting. Okay, we've got more Strathcoyne whiskey. The collector has collected a distillery, it seems. We'll put that on the table in the wine cellar. Let's move up Pearl and Tide now. And on Matthias and Amethyst Imago Pursuit, an account of an occult romance. A certain Mech claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Theban branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who used the arts of water to conceal themselves. Matthias defied us to hunt the names of the moth in the wood to populate his pinned collection. The Amethyst Imago had dallied with the witch and sister, but she'd returned to the wood to plead the moth's pardon. The moth, as a whim or a penance, sent her out to lure the Long to a slough of nightmares. Matthias loved the Imago. Did he? Can Long love? Or has that organ of their soul desiccated beyond repair? The Imago loved Matthias. Did she? Or did she only enact a whim? He pursued her through the wood, but at the last she turned aside from the nightmare slough, and they lay together where the browns grow bright. So they learnt the Grail's pleasures, and this is the lore they won. So, gossip, desires and dissolutions. I can't remember if we had a gossip shelf or not. It would probably have the Samuel Savage works if it does, but I may not have the other line or... Nope, here we go. I do have Humors of a Gentleman. Okay. Better now. So I've got the tryst that I need. We'll put the whist back on the cycle. I don't have that much time left, so I've got the Faust and the metal. Oriflammes thanks you for your custom. I really don't like this ordering. Alright, the skill is now level 2, its power aspects have also increased. Pearl and Tide, the depths of the sea, the waves upon the shore, and the memories of their withdrawal. So again, I don't really think that got us anything new, but we know that all of these are going to have to get to at least level 2 no matter what, so I'm just sort of queuing them up. Let's get Desires and Dissolutions up. And we'll use the Gossip for that. There's always more to learn. Now, I do have a little bit of a decision ahead of me, so one possibility would be to use the Confounding Parable. Another one would be to take the Foresight. I think in this case I'll take the Foresight because that gives me an opportunity to bring in Denzel. Again, the idea here is trying to get past the Weeping Chamber, so this saves me an element of the soul tomorrow. Alternatively, again, I can try and read Amalgam of the Red Rose or the Amalgam of the White Rose, or sorry, of our Ambrosial. We've already read White Rose. But I just don't think they get me enough. And I'm going to move the Carbonic Schism to... I think because all of these wind up counting as sort of doublings, I'm going to change the order of the library around. I'm never going to remember to find the known unknown Tantra here, so... This one, the Niveen Parchment, we can put... let's not put it beside the curse stuff. Get its own shelf for now. I think the Barrowchild's Elegies was another example of one of those. Just a second here. So 3, 4. I don't really need to move all this stuff off the shelves, but... I figured this isn't a bad little start, just so that I can say, okay, if I'm gonna break the sort of the two level rule, these are the ones that I can start with, and then when it's special weather, I can say, okay, this is gonna be the group that I sort of dip into. And some of this may have changed with regard, like once we start thinking of Nock and Moth. Although, actually, really, I should be working on the Winding Stair. Okay, realistically, what can I do in the rest of the day? We'll have a minute. I want to see where we're at with the bells and birds. Promising. So we'll open up the lost packages. The label is smeared to an unreadable fog. So because we haven't heard the bells and the birds yet, this makes me think I can use the Faust before the night's over. Yeah, we'll have about 10 seconds. Other aspects from Cultist Simulator that you miss in Book of Hours. You miss the confrontations with the hunters. It's a tricky one, right? Because to a certain extent, there are some things in Cultist Simulator that are very interesting, but counter to the tone of Book of Hours. So, I really, really loved playing the Exile. And especially because Exile did such a good job of communicating that, like, you were on the run and you were seeing lots of different places of the world. You could see other places in the world in the base game of Cultist Simulator. Like, you would go to vaults, but that was just it, right? Like, there's only that specific vault that you're going to, as opposed to feeling like you have exploration and are able to do specific things in these special locations. But I also feel that as great as Exile is, and like hopefully that's not a bad thing that you were lurking this whole time, Kieran. I appreciate you being here. If what you're saying is you were sending messages like through the mobile app or something like that, I must apologize that I did not see them, but please don't take that as being ignored. But I'm never going to complain about a lurk. Anyways, sorry. But yeah, so when it comes to Exile, like, I think when I played it, like, I was convinced that is probably the best thing that Alexis had ever done up to that point. But if I were to try and take that into Book of Hours, it would run completely counter to what this game is, right? Like, I think Weather Factory's gone out and said that this is the sort of game for maybe someone who's ever thought, I should just go leave it all and like, tend a lighthouse somewhere or something like that. And you don't get this almost sort of James Bond cultist simulator experience where like some of the feature is all the exotic locations you go to, because I know that Weather Factory actually worked quite hard to not just learn about the places where that they describe in that DLC, but to specifically look for details that don't show up in stuff like Wikipedia. They usually do quite in-depth research to try and find that sort of stuff that like someone who lives there would know. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of stuff that I miss from Cultist Simulator in Book of Hours, but I've never really... I don't know. I never really think of it. Obviously, this is the follow-up to that game. They take place in the same... They take place in the same setting. But I kind of find it hard to think of Cultist Simulator in... Sorry, Book of Hours in Cultist Simulator terms. And I think, again, that's just because I've kind of got my two... Like, both of these will be very, very reductive in terms of the games. And again, this may not necessarily be what the designers intended, but if I had to just sort of boil down to people what... what the game's about in the kind of sense of... I'm moving around these cards, and what am I doing, like, with all of this stuff? Cultist Simulator, I guess the best I would say is that it is a game sort of about the, the hostility of the mundane world to sort of the world of dream, and this would sort of be your ambitions or your, I always kind of like to say, the play you want to write, the game you want to make, the YouTube channel you want to start, that sort of stuff. And the fact that, there are still expectations of you, that you cannot just stay in the realm of fantasy. It can sometimes be very nice, and it's an idea that people toy with a lot, right? Like the movie Brazil is entirely about that world of dream in the face of very unpleasant existence. That game is entirely about the tension between, that thing that may only make sense to you, but that thing that has to be done, and navigating that tension between a hostile world and a world that's hostile to those kinds of dreams, and in this case, literal dreams, and your sort of need to satisfy that, and maybe you just reconcile with the world and choose to to take the job at the bank. And so to me, because the game is largely about that, you spend quite a bit of time facing some quite hostile mechanics. If you don't feed yourself, you get sick and you die. If you don't do things that will give you contentment, or if you don't find the right balance, you'll find that you fall to sort of despair. But if you spend too much time on some of those occult things, instead you'll sort of go the other way up into fascination and lose yourself that way. And because it's precisely about those tensions, and it's I think there is a certain importance there in terms of the world being like the roguelikeness of it is an important part, because you don't get that theme if you don't have sort of the sharper teeth. But there are other things about Cultist Simulator that are also interesting, right? One of the things that appealed to me so much when I first played that game was I was just kind of like, I was in grad school when I was playing it. And so this whole idea of like trying, just being given a little glimpse on this special world and sort of pulling on the thread and seeing where it goes and trying to combine pieces of information for something that maybe nobody's been able to sort of fully articulate in some way. There's some interesting ideas in that too, and I feel like a lot of that really does come to the fore with Book of Hours. And Book of Hours is the sort of game that, you know, when I think about that one, like how would I summarize it like I did with Cultist Simulator? To me, Book of Hours is very much about sort of storing and organizing, accumulating knowledge, right? So, you know, you aren't just repairing Hush House. You are given so many different things in this place, and everything needs to find its right place, right? And it's not even just the books. You know, it's there are other things in this game which need to be put in the right place, or at the very least, it's very satisfying to put them in the right place. But it's not just the objects in the library. There's no guide to tell you, you know, where you should put things on the shelves. It's up to you to decide what filing system makes the most sense. But people are going to be coming to you with an expectation that you will help them find the knowledge that they're looking for. But on top of that, right, there are the skills that you get, and it's not just about acquiring the skills or which ones you choose to put the points into, but it's entirely about how you fit them in the Tree of Wisdoms, and specifically what that means in terms of your broader understanding of the world. And so if I think of this game as being a little bit more about sort of, there's the idea of healing and sort of repairing yourself, repairing the books, repairing the library, but specifically sort of the acquisition, the organization of knowledge, right? This big role that a library has, and of course in this case the very special role that the library has. To this, it really does seem like one of these moments when, actually, you know what, I'm going to find if you can just give me a second here, I think I've got my Machiavelli. There's a quote that I think is relevant here. So yeah, naturally this book is at the bottom of the pile, but I've got it here. I just need a minute to find the specific letter. Okay, so this is a pretty famous letter that Machiavelli wrote to Francesco Vittori. I have this from the Essential Writings of Machiavelli by the Modern Library, so edited and translated by Peter Constantine. I'm just trying to find the passage here where he's describing sort of his day. Okay. When evening comes, I return home and go into my study, At the door I take off my everyday clothes, covered with mud and dirt, and don garments of court and palace. Now garbed fittingly, I step into the ancient courts of men of antiquity, where, received kindly, I partake of the food that is for me alone and for which I was born, where I am not ashamed to converse with them and ask them the reasons for their actions. And they, in their full humanity, answer me. For 4 hours I feel no tedium, and I forget every anguish, not afraid of poverty, nor terrified by death. I lose myself in them entirely. And because Dante says having heard without retaining is not knowledge, I have noted down how I have profited from their conversation and composed de Principatibus, a little study in which I probe as deeply as I can into deliberations on this subject, exploring what a principality is, its genus, how it is acquired, how it is maintained, and why it is lost. So this last little bit I have to include because I do enjoy the fact that in Exile he's still willing to say available where fine books are sold. But I really do like this passage where he talks about putting on the garments of court and palace. In fact, there's a book by, I think it's Philip Bobbitt. I think he was originally supposed to write, because I had this on my wish list forever, called The Prince of Biography. There was a series that was published called Books That Shook the World. So there's and there are varying qualities. So like the one on Plato's Republic is not good at all. Like it's by Simon Blackburn, and like he sort of starts off saying it's like, I didn't really get I didn't get the Republic very much, or like I didn't like the Republic that much, and like, or I didn't think I was suitable for the role or something along those lines, and like proceeds to spend the next 120 pages or so convincing you that he was not suitable for the role. But there were some other good ones. So Christopher Hitchens wrote a book called Tom Paine's Rights of Man, and that was originally for the Books That Shook the World series. Usually now it's just sort of published standalone as one of his books, which it is, but the branding of Books That Shook the World wasn't in there. So yeah, Philip Bobbitt was supposed to contribute to that. I don't know what happened, but he did eventually come out with his book called Garments of Court and Palace, which is referring this specific letter here. But Machiavelli clearly read the classics in a way that very few of us are even going to get close to, right? His more famous work is The Prince, but the discourses on Livy are really, really good, and probably closer to what his quote-unquote true thoughts are, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that I shouldn't be saying that, but that specific passage there, when he talks about being there, eating the food that for him is for him alone, and the ancients responding to him in their full humanity, right? Definitely, if you are a reader, if you've not directly felt that yourself, you definitely have gotten close. Like you can really clearly understand what he is talking about. And if you're not a reader, it's a hard one, right? Like sometimes I think some people may even be at a point where like some of their reading is actually hoping to hit that level that people are talking about, and that feeling that they get. Because, it's a little bit like, it's kind of like me and drinking. Like I have had alcohol, but I also sort of feel that every time I've had alcohol, it's pursuing the enjoyment that all the adults seem to be getting out of it. I don't care. It's mixed. I don't like completely abandon it, but I've gotten kind of into whiskey a little bit on occasion, and the right time would probably be the best for me to put it. So all of that is to say that when I think about what Book of Hours is about, I tend to think a little bit more about things like Machiavelli's letter, and I feel that this is a game that's much more in line with that, and that idea of how it feels when I'm sitting down and I'm really kind of cracking the nut of a maybe a tough but really worthwhile book. And so to a certain extent, again, I'm really trying to answer your question here, but just because I think of the games in two very different ways, and I think that they are intended for me to think of them in those ways, I think the things that interested me in Cultist Simulator are already in this game, and the ones that are missing from Cultist Simulator are there because this is a game about something different, and so because it's about something different, it's hard for me to miss them. But you said you wish there was something like the Siege of Hogwarts, like the Mantis beings would attack and you'd cast spells and use potions to protect the library. If you'd failed, you'd have worse weathers and fatigued soul pieces, for example. Yeah, I don't know. For me, the chill library game, I could maybe imagine if there was a different, maybe a different library in the Library of the Watchman's Tree that maybe might work. Like maybe an Ostorium kind of game would work along those lines, but I don't know. I kind of feel like that experience wouldn't be Hush House for me. But maybe I'm just a little more relaxed about the environment. Like I like that this game is kind of different from Cultist Simulator in that sense. Let's see if we can handle the luggage tonight. Although with that in mind, maybe just because I think there's a couple people here who haven't tried Cultist Simulator. Don't let my somewhat harsh descriptions of the game, like the game is tough. You'll probably lose the first couple of times you play it, but please don't let me scare you off Cultist Simulator. For those of you that have not tried the game, and if you are into this world especially, I do encourage you to still try out Cultist Simulator. I have been kind of hoping to run into some people who got into Weather Factory's games through Book of Hours and then tried Cultist Simulator. And some people don't care for it. Some people think it's quite interesting. Some people might even prefer it. But yeah, I definitely don't want to oversell the difficulty of the game, but it's a very different atmosphere from Hush House. All right, crack open the container, delight in your discovery. Another skin shuck mead, so I really shouldn't be hoarding these as much as I am at this point. Okay, I'm about half an hour past where I needed to finish, and I do need to be up early for work, so I think I'm going to leave that here. I will just sort of prep for Friday. So I'm not necessarily closer to my original goal of getting... Horns and Ivories to 5, but I actually think we're on a good path. So we've got... on the winding stairs, so my suspicion here is I'm going to be getting 2 door and wall lessons. So we'll use 1 to level up door and wall, and then we will use 1 to level up Horns and Ivories. From there, we can write the manuscript, we can invite Schaller back, and we can... see what happens when we complete his request. So we can probably do that today. If we get a foggy day, great, but I don't think we get fog in the summer. We can do, though. I'll just double check that I have this right. So Horns and Ivories, Ramsond. Oh right, no, we do take a chance because I don't have a knock tool. But yeah, no, I think this is one that's worth taking a bit of a risk for. While we do that, we can probably get Denzil up to open up the Weeping Chamber. So I think those are going to be the two main goals for today. One will be to read On the Winding Stairs. One will be to get Denzil to a point where he can open up that room. I think my health, I'm going to probably focus a little bit more on cooking. So I kind of like that we have a few items ready to go for the next salon. However, I do, where I can, I'd like to experiment a little bit more. I think I'll start making things like dough. Maybe I'll roast the beef without the marinade. But yeah, I think cooking, Denzil, and the Winding Stair would be a good little trio. I don't know if I'll be able to go to Crowcross Sands off of this, but and it's not the end of the world if we can't do it. But that is it for tonight. Let's see who is online. Prosciutto Fist is still doing conscript, so nobody's doing Book of Hours, sadly, so we will send you on to her place. I'm going to be back for Friday. We will be continuing on this playthrough. As far as... just trying to think if there's any other details. I've been trying to think about how I can get more stuff done for Book of Hours. I'd like to add more days, but I'm actually already running into trouble kind of filling my existing obligations. So if they happen, they will probably be on short notice. But yeah, I think I'm gonna send the raid off a little bit early. Thank you everybody for watching. Sorry for those of you who may be writing something and I miss it, but I gotta get to bed. So. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for interacting with me. And for those of you that weren't having a great night, I hope you feel a bit better. And also, Zangief, thank you for sharing a little bit about your experience. It's actually really exciting to see somebody so early in the game so enthusiastic about it. So I wanted to take a special second to say thank you for that. So anyways, thank you everyone for watching. Have a good night. We'll see you Friday.